All right, welcome back to the show. Today I am here with one of my favorite voices in sales, Kevin KD Dorsey. He's currently the VP of Inside Sales at Patient Pop. He's a mentor at 500 startups. He was the head of sales development and enablement at Service Titan, and he was the VP of sales of Snack Nation, amongst a slew of other things. KD, welcome to the show.
Pumped to be here, my man. I feel like this is a long time coming, so I'm pumped to be here, and we're gonna get after it. This should be good.
Yeah, I'm very excited. The Ramped crew is very excited to have you on, and I'm sure our audience is going to love it. Before we jump into things, would love to hear your story. Tell us, who is KD?
Ooh, boy, who is KD? I am a son, I am a brother, I am a father, I am a husband. I am a black male in an industry that is not very diverse, and I think at my core, I'm a teacher. It's something that I have done most of my life. I have been the captain of most teams, most clubs. I've taught, I've coached, I coach my teams. And so if I think about like what I identify with the most, it's a teacher. I love to share what I'm learning with those around me and hope that it can make an impact. So that's who I believe I am, right? But that's what I believe. Who knows what everyone else believes? But that's who I see KD as.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I really like when people come on the podcast and start with who they are as a person and not professionally. So I appreciate that. It helps the audience get to know you a little bit better too. And I mean, everybody can see it on all your online presence. You're always coaching. You're always dropping knowledge on folks. Really appreciate that sentiment is echoed and you believe it to your core, because we can certainly see it as folks who follow you online. I want to jump in to our questions. Reminder for folks, How I Sell Season 2, we are asking the same 5 questions to all of our guests to get to know apples to apples comparisons from some of the greatest sales leaders in the industry. So our first question here today: what is the best investment an early career salesperson can do for themselves and why?
Reading, by far. I don't think there is anything else that has the same short-term and long-term benefits as becoming an avid reader, right? So read, you can read on sales. That's great. There's tons of great stuff out there, but also read on decision making, read on habit building, read on mindset, read on stress, read on sociology, how we act as human beings, right? Because every role, whether it's sales or something else, you're interacting with humans. And we are a very, very complicated but simple group of creatures. We are very complicated and very unpredictable. At the same time, a lot of us have the same core wants, needs, desires, and fears, right? So I would say reading is the best place to start, because I tell people getting into their whatever their career is, like, obviously I love sales, I'll vouch for sales all day long, but why take 20 years to get good at something if you can learn from someone who did it for 20 years? Like, why wait? Why struggle, right? Like, if I wrote a book, I'm going to share my struggles and what I've learned, right? You could go read Jeb Blount, Keenan, Scott, Leese, right? There's so much good stuff out there. So I'd start with that, 10 pages a day. If you read 10 pages a day, you'll finish 1 to 2 books a month, right? That's 20 a year. Do that for 3 years straight and tell me you're not a different person after reading 60 books on how to be a better person. So that's far and away my number one. And it's cheap, y'all. It's cheap. We're talking 20 bucks a book, $9 on Kindle. Come on now.
Such an easy and often forgotten one. I love it. You can obviously see in the video format here that your shelves are stocked with books. I was somebody that really didn't start reading until after college. And in college, whenever I got a reading assignment, it was like, yeah, God, I do not want to do this. Why is reading so difficult for folks?
Truthfully, because we were never taught how. We were never taught how to read, first of all, meaning reading for retention. We were taught how to read to understand words, but we were never taught how to read for retention. Most people still sub-vocalize, right? We say the words in our head while we're reading. So we were never taught how to read fast either, which is big. We were also never taught how to take notes, but we were never taught the value of reading. We're always told we had to read. And so we associated reading with having to do something, right? If you want to pass this class, you have to read this book and you're going to read this book just to get that grade. Now, you were reading that book just to get that grade, not because you enjoyed it or because you were learning something. So that's why I think it's hard, is like people don't understand the value of it, which is why I try to preach it so much. Like, I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for the hundreds. I'm over 500 books now on my Kindle, 300 on my Audible. I don't know if it's going to be video or just audio, but like got 100 some books in my office. I've got 2 boxes of them out in the garage. Like, there's so much, like one of my biggest fears is I can't read enough. There's so much out there that I'm not going to be able to learn because I don't have the time. So if you're in college still, y'all, and you're listening, start reading now, even if it's just biographies of great people, because great people can inspire you to be great. But oh man, I wish people did it. I really do. It's such a game changer.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think it is that one word, right? You had to read. There's somebody pushing you. I don't know how you were as a kid or coming up through college, but whenever somebody told me I had to do something, my initial reaction was like, no, I don't. So that's right, and reading was always something you had to do. So now reading for fun, you have to unwind your mind a little bit and wrap your head around the fact that there's so much benefit out there. So I love that. Question number 2. What is the biggest surprise you experienced early in your career and why?
I'll say truthfully that my biggest surprise early in my career is I thought people had their shit figured out and they didn't. You follow me here? Like when you
Yeah.
look up to adults and business owners and directors and VPs and CEOs and venture capital firms, like, whoa, like they really know what they're doing. And then you get into it and realize they don't really know what they're doing. They are winging it just like everybody else. And that really like shook me early in my career. So I was like, these people that I looked up to, or these people that I aspired to be, like realizing that, one, they weren't gods, they weren't idols, they weren't perfect, they had flaws, many of them, right? And a lot of times they weren't anything special, they weren't that different. And I think that was something that definitely surprised me, like getting into like the professional world, because like you look up to these people and you just assume that they've got it all figured out, and they don't. So I think that was one of my earliest surprises early in my career.
When do you think you figured that out, and what do you think you did with that information?
So I figured it out honestly when I was having conversations with people, like about things that I was reading and like no one else was reading, and then about time management, like actions, and no one was following that, or why. So I'm a big question asker. I like to know, okay, so like why do you do this? Like what have you learned to get to this point? And how many people's answers are like, I don't know, it's just how I do it. They didn't know why they were doing what they were doing, right? And then also too, then to live it, like I was able to catch people very quickly in my career, very quickly. I'm younger than most people realize. I think people assume that I'm older than I am, even though I still got the baby face. Like I'm younger, right? And I've already led 3 very, very successful sales teams, been a part of 2 unicorns at this point, right? Like I've been able to do a lot, and it's because of, once, understand the people around you are nothing special. You don't allow yourself to meet their level. You can go beyond them. And this is also where a lot of people get in trouble in their careers and in their social lives, is they surround themselves with people that keep them on the same level. And oftentimes we almost feel bad outgrowing our crew. We feel bad outshining our fellow team members. We feel bad getting promoted before somebody else just because we were there for a shorter period of time. And so like we'll pull ourselves back. That was how I applied it. It's like, well, wait a minute. If I can outlearn and outwork the people around me, I mean, the sky's the limit. It actually gave me a lot of confidence. Like, okay, like I can do this. Like, if this is the best of the best, I can do this, because I'm going to outwork this person and I'm going to outlearn this person, and it's going to pay off for me. So that's how I.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I think a few operative words there, but outwork was something that for me was a preconceived notion I came into the workforce with, is that everybody in the workforce works exceptionally hard every day and just puts in max effort, and that's how you get to the top. And I think I realized that in month like 3 or 6, where you're looking around at the group that you come in with, and folks work differently. Everybody has a different tolerance to do work, or willingness to do work. And if you just kind of go a little bit extra everywhere you're looking, you will rise. That's just a
Not hard.
fact. Yeah.
It's not hard. I tell my team, outworking people is easy. It is easy to outwork people. Like most people don't actually understand what hard work is. But the key here, notice I said outwork, not work harder. There's a
Mm-hmm.
big difference
Mm-hmm.
because working hard is a feeling. Most people do feel like they're working hard. I work so hard. But are you outworking? Meaning, are you getting more work done
Yep.
per hour per day than the people you're around, right? It's easy to outwork people. That's not hard at all, right? Just takes a little bit of focus, a little bit of task management and a good goal to stick with. That's easy. Combine that with outlearning, right? Because this is, you just mentioned it. I think this is what people forget. There's this quote that goes around often, right? That says, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard, right? And it gets people fired up. They're like, yeah, rah, rah, and all this. It's not true, y'all. I'm going to burst your bubble here real quick. If I am twice as good at something as you, how hard do you have to work to beat me?
Well, potentially 2 times as hard, potentially, or more.
You got to do to beat me.
Yep.
You have to work 2.2 times harder than me. Talent does beat hard work 90% of the time. And that's going back to the first question where like that desire for learning, if you're better at something, you actually don't have to work as hard at it. That's the beauty of developing a skill, right? And people seem to forget that. They come out of college like, oh, I'm just going to work my way to the top. Or you could get better at your job.
Yep.
That like, if I'm 2 times better, you can't beat me. You
Yep.
can't. I would have to not work. And that's not going to happen. So skill development is crucial.
Yep, I think that's totally right. Early in my career, I watched folks, I was an early employee at Groupon, watched folks come up the ranks who would clock in at 9, leave at 5, but they were aces, complete aces. They did not have to actually put in those extra hours to make it work, and they would 4x their quota. Thinking of a few folks in mind that just like came in, grinded it out, had the best conversations. There'd be like a little powwow around these people because they're listening at how great their calls were, and this just didn't come naturally. They worked to get to that point so that they could take off at 5 and peace out and still crush their quota. So yeah, agreed. Moving on to question 3, and this one's a little deep. What is one mistake that you made early in your career that shaped the way you operate today?
Tried to pretend to be someone I wasn't. I think that was the biggest mistake, and I did it twice before I really like leaned into like who am I? I had an early mentor who I really looked up to, who didn't have the best, let's call it some of the best habits. He wasn't the best like person. He was a very good business person. I learned a lot from him. But he also had some not so good like personal habits, and those were things that I found myself getting like pulled into or thinking were okay or lowering my standards around. All right, so I was trying to be too much like him. And then when I got into my next like leadership role, right, at an early stage company, same idea. Like I was, literally the only Black employee at the company, and just I found myself really I wanted to fit in with everybody, right? So I talked differently, I dressed differently, like I wanted to be one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like people can tell when you're disauthentic, even if you're really trying. There's some like they may not consciously know it, but they can feel it. It's like there's something off. That's not really him. That's not how he actually is. And so it took me a long time to finally lean in and go, okay, how do I want to act and behave? What makes me feel good as a person? And when I really started, like, I didn't always wear the black hat and the black, and I got the chain, I got the tattoo, right? I had that shit covered. I wasn't allowing myself to be me. And once I started leaning into that is when not only did truthfully my career really start to accelerate, but my fulfillment in life accelerated. right? And I'd rather make 100K fulfilled than 250K unfulfilled. And to your young audience listening right now, you might hear that and go, that's BS. That's not true. Like, dude, I'll be way more fulfilled at 250 than 100. Not if you're not being yourself, and not if you're not living up to your values, and not if you have to lie to yourself every single day, and not if you're miserable at work. I'm telling you right now, having gone through it, you won't, right? You'll back off from that real quick. So that was an early mistake. It was not being my authentic self, and it's been a big change and a very, very positive change for me. Because also too, like, there are people that don't vibe with who I am. We don't need to be friends. We don't need to spend time together. You don't vibe with who I am as a person. Perfect. I'm going to surround myself with people that do, right?
Yep.
I'm going to find my tribe. I'm going to surround myself with people that do get down with that. And here we go.
Yep, that's exceptional advice, and it's not easily learned. And I will offer up something here, and why it's not easily learned is because you go into work thinking you've got to act in this professional way, and you shut off your personality. And I think, I'm sure I did early in my career, maybe without knowing it, is just like I'm work mode and then I'm personal mode. And in work, you're one person, and when you're out of work, you're another. And I think finding the way to kind of blend those is really difficult for some folks who are coming in trying to impress and obviously looking to work hard, improve in their career right away and hit the next step. How do you blend those two, or how do you become your authentic self within a workforce or culture? And I guess to go one off that is like, if you're in a place that doesn't support that, what do you do?
People know the answer to that question. They know it. They're just afraid to answer it. If you are in an environment where you cannot be yourself, you cannot be your true self, the answer is obvious. It's just scary. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's worth it. You find somewhere else, because the impact that will have on your life, I can't even put to words, which sounds dramatic and cheesy, but it's the case. When you are able to walk into a workplace and be you and not be afraid of it, very freeing, right? Because the other part is back to kind of what I was saying before about how I thought everyone would get together. Everyone's faking it. Everyone's faking it.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, so understand that. And like, well, wait a minute. If everyone's faking it, who am I actually trying to be like? Think about that real quick.
Yeah.
You are trying to be like someone who's not being like themselves.
Yep.
You are becoming a knockoff version of someone else's knockoff version. So start being yourself. Now, real quick to people listening, this does not mean that you walk into the office with some baggy jeans and a do-rag and cap backwards and cussing left and right. You need to be professional. You need to be professional, but you shouldn't have to change who you are, right? So just lean in to it. And if you don't know who you are, start paying attention. What brings you joy? When do you light up? When do you get the most excitement in life? What are the things you like to talk about and read and do in your spare time? Find people like to do those things, right? You might be shocked how many people at your company like to go camping. You might be shocked, but you never talk about it because they never talk about it because they're afraid to talk about it because nobody talks about it, right? So like, lean into it. Everyone else is faking too. So stop trying to be the fake version of somebody else.
Yep, that's great. We went a layer deeper. We went inception there, within the dream, within the self. So I like it. I like it. And I think, frankly, I think quitting is a skill. You know, there's so many folks that just stick at a place for years and years and years. And I'm sure you have these people in your own network, your personal network, who are just like, man, every time you meet them, I hate what I do. I hate the company. And we're like, you know, why don't you get out of there? It's just it's so difficult. It has to be learned because you've got so much pressure, like presumed pressure out there that you're going to be looked at some way if you quit. But really, you got to do you. You have to find yourself.
What's the again, another quote that's just full of BS, right? Winners never quit and quitters never win.
Right.
No, winners are great quitters. They just
Right.
know what to quit. They know what to quit. LeBron James quit football.
Yep.
He quit it. He knew what to quit and removed all other distractions, right?
Yep.
Like, you know what the right things to quit. These business leaders that you see, you know, people love to talk about Steve Jobs. Go read Steve Jobs' like history, right? He studied like calligraphy and Zen and meditation. He had multiple failed businesses. He quit multiple jobs. He got fired from his own company and then eventually came back. The Steve Jobs that we know and saw till his later years was the byproduct of 50 years of quitting
Yep.
things
Yep.
until he got there, right? So quitting the wrong things is actually very powerful.
Yep. I mean, some of the best tech folks too, the best current CEOs in tech quit often. You know, Jack Dorsey didn't find Twitter or Square until his 30s. He was an artist or dabbled in many career opportunities before even finding Twitter and then Square. You know, these folks are out there and they don't succeed until way later in their lives. They're quitting things that don't feel right to get to the one that actually works. So yeah, totally great. Question number 4, who has had the greatest impact on your career? And could you expand upon that a bit?
So I will say David, my first mentor. He far and away has had the biggest impact on my career because he's who got me into reading. He's who got me into reading. I was not a reader in college. I wasn't a reader in high school. That wasn't who I was. Right? He took a chance on a young Black college dropout individual to come in, and I was doing personal training at the time to work at his gym, and I think he saw a background in me that was similar to some of his background, and he took me in. And he sat me down after like a couple months and said, hey, like, do you want to be a millionaire? You want to be a millionaire? I said, yeah, I want to be a millionaire. He's like, being a millionaire would make you pretty happy. I said, yeah, it'd make me happy. He's like, you sure? Like, you sure you want to be a millionaire? I'm like, yes, absolutely. He said, all right, cool. So if I gave you $1 million right now in a briefcase, but you couldn't spend it, would you be happy? I said, well, no. And he said, why not? You told me being a millionaire would make you happy. You have $1 million. You are now a millionaire. Why aren't you happy? And I said, well, because I can't do anything with it. And he said, like, exactly. You don't want to be a millionaire. You want to be able to do the things you believe a millionaire can do. And that's the way you need to think. You need to become a millionaire before you can become a millionaire, right? And understanding all those things. He got me into goal setting. He handed me a book called Think and Grow Rich. And that book changed my life, not simply because the book itself was that great. There's also some been interesting insights on whether or not a lot of that even actually happened, which is pretty interesting if y'all go down that rabbit hole. But the book itself, the concepts, great. But it was the first time in my life that I realized I controlled my destiny.
Yep.
That like I could set goals. The better I was, the better my life would be. And so he's who got me into reading. And if I hadn't gotten into that, I don't think I'd be where I am today. So David takes it.
That's awesome. And a couple questions off that. And one, that book is great. It's more for me, it was like how I could, almost put the thoughts into my head to make myself or try to become more successful. That was the realization there. And, it is a super interesting book. There's some crazy stuff in that book. I wish I actually read it when I was like 18 instead of like 24, to be honest. But
can I ask you a question back? Do you think you would have been ready at 18? If you read it at 18, do you think it would have had the same impact at 18 as it did at 24?
It's a good question. I don't think I would have gotten the same thing out of it. I think I probably would have taken like some of the actions in that book too literally and then ended up driving myself crazy because I wasn't succeeding at the level of these like world changers back in the 1900s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, because that's part of it too. And this is also why I encourage people to reread books, because you are a different person a year later, 2 years later. I reread Think and Grow Rich every January, and I have for the last 13 years.
It's awesome.
Every January, because I'm a different person every year. And that book is what started. I still get something new or different from it every single time. So coming back to it's key, because if I had read it at 18, who the hell knows what I would have done at 18, right? I probably would have read it and been like, oh, I want to be a rapper still, right? And who knows what I would have taken, So like timing is everything in life sometimes. And so having that time, I was just curious, right? Like, would I have been ready for it at 18? I don't think so. I don't think I would have been ready.
Yep. That's right. I'm learning something too from you right now. So I am going to commit to reading that again and then we'll see what cadence I should be
Yes.
reading that too, because that's right. I read it too. It's been too many years. I'm certainly a different person than I was at 24. Question for folks off of that last one on how to find, when you find somebody that's having that impact, do you know it in the moment? And if you don't, how do you find a mentor like that? How do you find somebody that's going to guide you in your career?
So there's probably mentors around you already that we just don't pay attention to. Like, who are the people around you who do push you to achieve more, who do have higher expectations for you than you have of yourself? And sometimes are the very people that we avoid. Oh, like I hate that teacher. Oh, I hate that boss. Like, that might be a mentor in waiting there because they have a higher expectation for you than you have of yourself. That's a great quality of a mentor, right? The second part of it is just being proactive and reach out, right? So when I was first becoming a VP of sales, I reached out to 5 VPs of sales a week for a year looking for mentorship. Y'all can do that math real quick. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Come out over 250 VPs across a year reaching out saying, "Hey, my name's Kevin. I went by Kevin back then. I wasn't cool enough yet to go by KD. Um, you know, I'm a first time VP of sales and I'm looking for help and mentorship to learn, discuss struggles with, and hopefully avoid some of the same mistakes I'm sure you went through your first time. Would you be willing to have a conversation from time to time to help me on my journey?" That's how I met Scott Leese and Kevin Gaither and Colin Coggins and Dave Brock, right? Some of my very early mentors and now close friends in the VP world, right? But it took 250 because there are other names where I had conversations. There's other mentors that fell off. There are other names in there where I got to speak when I knew it wasn't going to be a good fit, right? Where they were in it for themselves and not for me, right? So all those things are there, but reach out to people 1 to 2 steps ahead of you.
Yep.
This is actually not like just some advice here, y'all. If you are just getting into the sales game, just getting in, I may not be the best mentor for you. Reach out to someone who just got into the sales game 2 years ago and is succeeding.
Yep.
And then you become an AE. And okay, well now you want to become a manager, start reaching out to managers. You become a manager, then start reaching out to director. You're work your way up just because they can give you very tactical and tangible advice of what they just went through, right?
Yep.
So that would be my advice: is reach out, but don't. What's the shoot for the stars? Fall in the clouds or some nonsense. Don't reach out to Bezos or I'm blanking on names right now, like Brunson and who's the Mavs guy?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban. Don't reach out to Mark Cuban for mentorship.
Yeah.
Reach out to someone 2 years ahead of you. That's the key.
That's right. Because they can actually guide you step by step versus back in my day, here's what I did at a very high level, 10,000 foot view. That's great advice. And what I love is the tactic there of actually hitting up 5 people every single week to get to the goal you wanted, which was a few mentors. I think that's often lost. This is that concept you brought up in the beginning of it is work smart, it's outwork, but nobody does that, right? Nobody is going around hitting up 5 people. Nobody's reading 10 pages a day, breaking these goals down to increments that are manageable and you can consume versus I need to read 100 books this year. Oh yeah, but not if you don't start with 10 pages a week or 10 pages a night. So we'll get you out of here on this last question, question 5. We ask all our guests, if you could go back in time, now that you have the benefit of hindsight, what advice would you give yourself as you were entering your career, so coming out of Wisconsin, and why?
Build something of my own sooner would have been the advice. And, buy Apple and Amazon stock and Tesla stock very early on. But, it would be to, start building something on your own on the side earlier because you learn a lot building things on your own. I've always had a little bit of the entrepreneurial kind of itch, but I didn't start till later in life because also too I had the limiting belief of I didn't have enough money to do it.
Yep.
versus like you can actually go, you can find money. There's money out there, right? And there's like several ideas I look back at it like, man, if I had just had like $5,000 at the time, that probably would have worked.
Yep.
But I didn't have enough to get it going, right? And so I would tell myself, start building something of your own earlier, because if you want to create like real wealth, you need to own something, right? You need to own it. And that would be the advice looking back that I'd give myself. Like, again, depending on the age group, if I'm already reading, good, okay, good, keep reading, all that, fine. But I'd say start building something, right? Start building something as you go. Start building content earlier. Make a course, make a product. Shoot, maybe even teach myself how to code 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I could already have built what I want to build, right? So that would probably be my advice. Build something of my own earlier.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice, especially the part about, owning it. And even if it didn't work in the first version, you at least get that rep in of I've put something out there of my own, on my own volition, that I built. And okay, V1, shoot, didn't work, but I already built something. Now I'm a multi-time entrepreneur, whatever you want to call yourself, right? But you've gotten the first one out. So that's great advice. And I think folks, could certainly learn a lot from that right now. Well, KD, this has been great. Where can people find you?
So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn and give me a follow there. Unfortunately, I'm at the 30,000 connection limit, so I can't accept any more connections, which is just silly. So you can follow me there. I have a podcast as well called Live Better, Sell Better. And I do have a Patreon group where I go pretty in depth on training. It's called InsideSales Excellence. So training, everything, discovery, cold calling, mindset, goal setting, all that's in there, hour-long sessions and everything. So that's where they can find me, and, hope this is valuable for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We hope to chat with you again. And folks out there, do take him up on this opportunity. KD is one of the absolute best voices in sales. We love him over here at Ramped, and I know you will too. So absolutely hit him up where you can and when you can. Thanks again, KD. We really, really appreciate all your time today.
Absolutely, my man. Appreciate it.
All right. See ya.